good God, does it go on and on and on, and rightfully so. Again, easily game of the fucking last 10 years or whatever. And it's so dense. Act 3 is so ridiculously dense. More reading, and every single street has a new building which contains a whole bunch of new things that are going on with it. It's a little overwhelming at first because it kind of feels like this is a whole game, not like the latter part of a game, which we're now well over 100 hours into. And this day started like many others, but with twists and turns and everything going on. The first thing was first is I wanted to go back after the nightmare that happened previously with Gortash and his tower and the goblin treasure, and finish up the outskirts of Lower City, because I had still had the letters quest to do. I still had the murder in the temple to deal with Dribbles the clown. All this stuff needed to be resolved, and I felt like I was kind of geographically moving forward while leaving all these things behind. So I decided to retract and go back to see what was going on. Thankfully, there wasn't too much to actually do there. The first thing was, as I walked through, I saw a bunch of kennels with dogs outside. I was like, oh, cool. I really had to restrain myself here because technically this lady isn't doing anything wrong, but the kennel lady is a bully and she's mean, and the dog... Just play the clip, X. I can't click dog. There we go.
I'm under strict orders to speak to no outsiders. I am also forbidden from receiving scratches, scritches, and belly rubs.
What? What kind of operation are you running here, lady? A dog that is denied belly scritches is painful to me. Painful to me. And it took every ounce of me not to murder her on the spot. But it's wrong. She's the courier. They're working dogs. And it's no different than some other working dogs that you're like, you can't touch them. You can't treat them like that. They're bred for a specific purpose. But it made me feel horrible inside. But turning in the letters was fine. Just turn the quest in. There was nothing special there. And then it actually turned out, it's like, Lower City is probably the next place to go. The murder in the temple seemingly can't be solved right now. I've looked everywhere. But there's still more to do. And so I feel like Lower City is the next place to go. So I moved into Lower City. I had my invitation to get in there. Immediately walk in and overwhelmed by the sheer scope and size of what's going on in there. And the map is like full of icons and things to do. I immediately was drawn to the right-hand side, which was like a barracks with a lot of soldiers outside it. There's gallows in front of you showing you, Baldur's Gate is not in a good place, and the earthquakes keep going off because of the giant megamind. And in there was a really weird situation. I had a situation where there was a lady whose child was missing, and for whatever reason, the head of the Flaming Fists, I believe they're called, which are the police, was clearly like struggling mentally and can't remember what's going on. Please, can you tell me why here? And the lady's losing her goddamn mind because her daughter's missing. And it totally makes a lot of sense that she's being manipulated and this lady is losing her mind about it. So obviously I said I'd intervene in that. And then I noticed that I could go downstairs and found myself in a sewer system. And again, it's one of those moments like I had all the way back in Act 1 where you're doing like, I'm doing the Goblin Camp. This is a big piece of content like it would be in any game. And then you find a ladder or whatever. And it's like, oh, by the way, here's an entirely different zone to distract you from the quest that you were doing previously. And now I ended up down in the sewers where there's a crazy guy performing a ritual on a corpse that's missing a head. Clearly bad juju. He's crazy. Killed him. Then I found that there was assassins down there. Orin kept showing up. She shows up more than Arthas in Wrath of the Lich King, just turning up every left which way I go to torment me and say she wants... I do not like this character, by the way. People always assume I'll like the sexy lady characters, especially if they're like psychos, but straight psycho characters don't do much for me in terms of being interested in that character. I want to slice you up and wear your skin as a handbag or whatever. It's like, okay... It's kind of so absurd, it doesn't really land with me. So, Orin the Red, although she's one of the Deadly Three, I'm like, okay. Like, Gortash seems way more interesting, as did Thorm. Orin the Red, who's just like, I get it, she worships the god of murder at Baal's feet, but for me, she's not doing too much for me. But then it got even weirder. So I'm moving through the prison, through the sewers, and I'm exploring everything. I'm finding little caches and things like that. I was actually looking for the lady's skull, that a ritual is being put on, because you can attach something to the body and it clearly wants a skull. So I was browsing for a skull where I found a puzzle of it controlling vents to open a sluice gate, and it was awful. I had to control. It looked like a Resident Evil puzzle where you had to match the temperature and the water pressure in order to open the sluice gate, but they didn't seem to have rhyme or reason as to how they worked in conjunction. Like, the temperature kind of sometimes went from 0 all the way to top, and water did like little increments, but then it would just jump. Then you would let them go, so it would drop down, and they wouldn't drop down at the same rate. It was just annoying. But ultimately, I realized that the gate had opened automatically at some point, or I had accidentally landed in them, and it had just opened it. And moving through there, the weirdest thing ever is I found a harbor with a submarine in it. I don't know. Again, Baldur's Gate 3 just continues to blow my mind. I'm down here in a submarine, and I'm like, what? I was in a sewer a minute ago, and I've only just arrived in Lower City, and I'm now in a different area, and I convinced the guy that I was working for Gortash, and he was like, oh, cool, well, I'll take you to the Iron Throne then. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Sure, why not? Let's see where this goes. Ended up going to the Iron Throne, which is an underwater Rapture Bioshock-style prison. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? Which then led me to a really interesting mission. A super interesting mission. Now, not gonna lie, I disobeyed our own rules here because I feel like you should reload here. Unless you know exactly what's going on, you should take at least one try. I did this on my second try, by the way. So I had one try where I kind of learned what was going on. And then I did it on the second try, and whatever will be, will be. But there are rules to it. You have 5 turns. 5 turns to not only rescue all the prisoners, which need manual interaction, so you have to spread out throughout the base, and get back to the submarine. You have only 5 turns to do that. And within here are 2 important characters. There's a bunch of, like, gnome slaves that you can rescue, gnome prisoners. But on top of that, there's the Duke, which is Will's father, and a Felum, who was the Mindflayer, the friendly Mindflayer we met in the Mushroom City. And I really wanted those characters, but I also wanted to, like, rescue as many people as I could. This is where my Barbarian was just extraordinary, because my Barbarian, especially with haste, can just run all the way through this base in almost one turn while killing everything in their path. And what I decided to do was give speed potions to Karlach, Asterion, and Shadowheart, so they also got the benefit of that. And that worked out really well. So I sent Asterion down south in order to free a Felum, because you actually had to go in there. This, again, I didn't know this on the first playthrough, because a Felum doesn't obey the exact same rules as everybody else. Everybody else, you open their prison cells with a lever, and they just make their way back to the submarine. A Felum, you have to open his door with pick lock, and then you actually physically go inside and, like, have dialogue with him. And on my first run, I opened his door and just carried on going, and only noticed, like, on the next turn, it's like, oh, he's not moving. And you actually physically have to go in there. And then I also realized the Duke is in here as well, which is on the other side of it. So I sent my Barbarian to get a load of the gnome survivors, and I sent Karlach and Shadowheart to the right to get the Duke, and I sent Asterion down south to get a Felum and a couple of the prisoners that were down there. And then what I decided to do was pull Karlach back to center mid, so she wouldn't get her concentration broken, which would lose the haste on my Barbarian and cause lethargy, so I'd miss a turn. So she was less likely to get interrupted, and then be able to manage everything else. I got the Duke out, and then there's another plot twist. God knows the stress. This is on my second go. So my first go, I had a quick look around and then reloaded to have a proper go at it and use potions once I understood the mechanics of it. What I didn't know about is that Methuzahla turns up, and because I had made an agreement that the Will had abandoned the father, she spawns a lot of exploding spiders on him to kill him. I didn't know that was going to happen. So because the Duke spawns with low health and I get to control him as a character, my instinct was to use a healing potion on him, because I didn't want to waste an action on a turn healing him with Shadowheart or whatever. And so I gave him a large healing potion just so I didn't have to worry about him, and I could just run him back to the submarine. And then immediately after that, the cutscene played, these spiders spawned and all plowed into him, and he survived. Pure sheer luck. Absolute sheer luck that happened, and I did not want to heal him on my next turn. And so from that, I was able to use Dimensional Door with Shadowheart and bring him all the way back to the submarine without him being in any danger whatsoever, while my Barb just kind of cleaned up the mess. I got everybody out minus 3 of the prisoners. I literally missed 3 of the normal prisoners because they got blocked physically by the enemies that continuously spawn in there. So overall, massive success. Super, super happy with how this played out. What a fantastic mission. Super fun. I got great rewards from it. I got the Duke back to the camp to talk to Will. A felon is going to come back and see me later, and then the prisoners are really happy, and they want me to free their friends from another area, the Steelworks, where they're building all the steel watches. So that is cool. I personally think I did really well here. I'm glad I did it on my second go, because if somebody would have died, I would have stuck with it at that point, and it is what it is. Going back to the camp then. Going back to the camp. The confrontation happens between Will, his father, and Methuzahla, and I worked it out. So I managed to connect their minds so that Duke could see why his son made certain decisions, and they have rebonded. That was really cool, and now we're going to work together. So happy that worked out, and Methuzahala's going to hang around and say, well, there's still twists to come, so she's still got things to play with in that world, which is super cool. But what an awesome, fun situation. What really paid off for me at this point, though, is that Karlach interrupted me and said, wouldn't it be nice if we did something different and we go for dinner? I have to say, this is one of the better scenes of the game. You go for a quiet dinner where you have a lot of fun. It's not just about sex. Like, there is a sex scene, but it's a really nice scene between them both. And I truly enjoyed this so much. It was really touching. It was great. And it's exactly what I'd like to do. And I treated it as if I was taking for a date, the food we chose and things like that. And it was absolutely phenomenal. But then, okay, look, I can swear to you now, like, put me on camera, Bex. I have never watched hentai. You can believe me or not, but I have no reason to lie about this. I'm aware of what it is, I think. It's basically octopus sex, as far as I'm aware. I have never seen it. We get visited by the Emperor in the night. And it's clearly so he can have sex with you. Now, the canon to our story is that did not happen because it's gross and disgusting and it really creeped me out. But I'm not going to lie. I wanted to see the cutscene. So this was a save reload. It was. I'm not cracking. It was more a case of we have to see the cutscene. I don't want it to happen, but we have to see it. And it's the lengthiest sex cutscene in the game that I've seen so far. It's very elaborate, and I can only imagine the animators of the game just having a whale of a time making them, knowing what people's reactions would be, how gross this is, and just laughing as they made it. Like, that's the only way you could do it, is not be grossed out and be like, oh yeah, and then you're going to suck on his tentacles and things. Like, oh my god, it was rancid. It was absolutely rancid. So I will say this. I have seen it. We reloaded and did not do it, but of course we needed to see the cutscene. I ditched on the bear sex, but this, yeah, it was too out there. I didn't know this existed. It is what it is. It happened, okay? But in our canon story of our character, it did not happen, and going forward, no, we did not have relations with the Emperor, but I'm just saying that we did see it. Returning back to the city then, a lot of mentions about the hag, and I actually made a process at this point of investigating every single house, because I kept bumping into locked doors where nobody was around, so I wanted to open them, and the first one I opened actually had a dead body lying on the floor and a piece of Dribbles the Clown when we're looking for the body parts of Dribbles, which then indicates to me is like I should check every single house, even if I'm not supposed to be in there. It's worth a look, because maybe the story will send me there, or maybe it's better if I investigate these. Made me work on my stealth skills a little bit of how to coordinate Asterion breaking into places while other people spoke to other people. And that was great, but one of the houses we bumped into was a murder house, where the entire place was filled with ghouls, and there was literally piles of cadavers, legs and arms, and blood on 2 of the floors of the building. And obviously my murderous instinct rose up immediately. However, the dialogue in the game bugged here. And if it didn't, this situation would have gone very differently. When speaking to the actual necromancer down in the foyer of the house, after I dispatched of his ghouls upstairs, because of course, and then going downstairs, not only does he talk about the Book of Thay, which I still have in my inventory with Asterion, it's looking for a key. That's where I'm at right now. It needs a key to proceed with that. He also had a whole bunch of dialogue options about the artist that owes me 600 gold from Act 1 is possessed. I haven't bumped into this guy yet. I don't know whether I sequence broke the game or whatever, but the guy was going on and on about how possessed he is and how he can help him, and I haven't done any of that. I've not bumped into him, I haven't spoken to him, but apparently he's possessed somewhere, and apparently my character knows about it, because my character was like, hey, he's possessed, Oscar I think he's called, he's possessed, can you help? I'm like, sure, I guess, and for those reasons, plus he has a very, very nice helm on him that I want for Karlach. He's still alive for now. This guy's absolutely dying because he's butchering people in the town. And ordinarily, I actually had a bit of a dilemma, and I talked to my stream about it, is everything in my instinct is to murder this guy now. And I feel like I'm gaming the system a bit because he's mentioned this other stuff, and I kind of want to know what happens with Oscar. I feel it's very video gamey for me to make this choice compared to a lot of the choices we've made throughout the game, but I can't help it. Like, I know this ties to something else, which is going to be cool, and this guy's definitely going to be dead. He's on the kill list. That's absolutely going to happen. But for now, he's on the list, but he still lives, because I kind of want to know what happens with Oscar, and I hope I'm going to explore more of the city so I can find him. The finale, really, that I bumped into on this day was the Wizard's Tower. This was really interesting, because Dame, the Night Song, is living in my camp and hasn't really said anything. And then entering this area, the quest changed then. Do you want to basically throw the Night Song under the bus and reveal everything to the Grand Wizard of Baldur's Gate? I was like, not really, but I want to see where this goes. And then upon investigating the tower, you end up in conversation with this guy. And he wants the Night Song for the same reason Ketheric did. You know, he's going to imprison her forever. He shows you the prison. And he's going to become immortal, so he can gain more knowledge and more power and blah, 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 blah. The usual megalomaniac stuff. In which case, of course, he's going to die. That's no surprise to any of you by now. But I did want to tell Dame about it, so I wasn't sure if I was able to do that. So I kind of was like, I'll leave. And I checked my journal to try and catch up on this, because we hadn't done much Night Song stuff for a while. And it says, you should probably tell Dame about this. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, the game does want me to do this. So I went and told Dame, and she's like, okay, let's go mess this kid up. I was like, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go mess this fool up. And went back to the tower. I got into it. It was not a difficult fight. Again, sometimes with the way this goes is you bump into difficult content because you've reached it at a weird point. And then that means that other stuff, certainly if you've leveled up, is a little easier than it should be. This fight was not hard. Smacked him to pieces. Which was great. But what actually followed from this was way more interesting, was hidden, mysterious wizard vaults and towers and buttons and switches, all kinds of stuff to play with. So Dame went back to the camp, and I started exploring this because he told me about a hidden vault that was down there, and a piece of paper told me about a Jinn lamp that was hidden somewhere in the vaults. So messing around down there and pressing all the buttons and solving the puzzles and things, did find a Giga, I'm not sure what it qualifies as legendary or whatever, but staff for Karlach, new armor for Karlach, which looks so much worse than what I had. Isabel's robe was so much better, so that needs dyeing. I'm going to fix that. It looks terrible. And then, so huge upgrades for Karlach, which have been desperately and sorely needed for a while. And then I got into the vaults, where I got a little maze. I actually overthought this a lot. I do this a lot, man, and I'm sure you guys too. When you're presented with a maze of doors, I get a notepad open and I start writing the paths down. Like, when I go through this door, it gives me 4 options, and these 4 options lead me to here and here. And this allows me to retread my steps very, very easily and use process of elimination without retreading steps. Well overthought it. It just turned out you had to, it was one of 2 doors, or one of 4 doors leads one way, and one of 4 doors leads the other way, and 2 of them just reset you so you can go straight back through. I could have done this in half the time. But either way, I managed to get some mysterious books, which I'm not sure what to do with yet, but they cursed me, which was interesting. But then I finally got down to the vaults, or the different parts of the vaults when I found this note. There's a Jinn lamp behind hidden walls. I think we all do this in Baldur's Gate 3, is you can game the system by looking outside the boundaries of what you can see, and you will see like a shape, which clearly is room-shaped, and that's where you know there's a hidden room. We've all done it, don't pretend. In which case, I just bobbed myself into these side rooms and found the Jinn lamp. This was hilarious. I only found out afterwards I solved this in a way that other people didn't. So the thing is with this, as soon as you touch the lamp, whichever character you touch the lamp with is trapped inside the lamp, and the Jinn gets out. And then you have a choice. You can either let the Jinn go, or you can fight the Jinn. I wanted to kill the Jinn because, you know, I wanted out of the lamp. And then had ideas. It's like, wait a minute. What happens if I throw the lamp at the Jinn? Because it works as long as you touch it. So I grabbed Asterion and tried to throw the lamp at the Jinn. And because Asterion's grabbing the lamp to throw the Jinn, that put him inside the lamp and kicked my character out. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. So then I thought about telekinesis. Can I telekinetically grab the lamp and throw it at the Jinn? But you can't. The lamp can't be moved by force. So that doesn't work. I haven't even attacked the Jinn at this point. I'm just trying different things out to try and re-trap it back inside. Because I'd looted everything inside. I had a ton of loot inside the lamp, which I looted up. But I wanted to get the Jinn back inside. Then I thought, okay, I can't telekinetically move it. What about my magic hand? Because that's not by force. It's just a hand, but it's not mine. So I spawned the magic hand in, the magic fingers. I went and grabbed the lamp. And lo and behold, it trapped the magic hand in there. And that guy's now banished to the Phantom Zone forever. Unlucky. That poor ethereal hand is stuck in there for all time. Unlucky. I mean, it should despawn after a few turns. I'm not sure how things work in a Jinn lamp. And then I had all my team out. I had all the loot. Killed the Jinn. Bish bash bosh. Back home for breakfast. No problem at all. Easy game, easy life. So fantastic. And I can't believe that worked with the magic fingers. I thought it'd say no, but nope. It trapped the hand inside and released Asterion, so I had my whole team free. Perfect. And to wrap it up today, guys, the hags that are stealing the children. I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I found where their hag survivors are meeting. And oh my god, it is the lady from Act 1 where I resurrected her zombie husband. Marina, I think she's called. She's back. She's back, and now she's leading the charge of survivors. And Connor, the zombie, lives. He's still there. He's still hanging around. He's still doing his thing. And we have another hag to find. And the best thing about this, and I can't wait for this, and I'll update you as soon as it happens, is I've made a potion called Hag's Bane. I found the recipe in the safe in Marina's house that says, will force the hag to regurgitate a recently consumed child. I do believe that in probably the next update I have with you guys, we're going to be seeing a hag vomit a child up. Perfect. So look forward to that. I'll be back with you soon. Bye, guys. See you later.